ever notice how some expenses just disappear? Not in a dramatic way, not like you got scammed or robbed, but they just sort of evaporate from your bank account every single month, and you barely even register it anymore. It's become background noise. White noise, really. And honestly, that might be the most dangerous part. Let me paint you a picture. It's the middle of the month. You check your bank account, not because you're worried exactly, but because you're just checking. And the number is lower than you thought it would be. Again, you do that mental math thing we all do, right? Okay, rent went out, utilities, groceries were kind of high this week. Yeah, that makes sense. But there's this gap, this weird 200 or 300 or sometimes $500 gap that you can't quite account for. Instead of investigating it like a normal person, you just shrug. You tell yourself you'll be more careful next month. Spoiler alert, you won't be. My name is Robert, and I spend way too much time thinking about money, personal finance, and specifically why smart, capable people make the same financial mistakes over and over again, even when they know better. And what I've realized after looking at hundreds of budgets and talking to countless people about their spending is that there's this invisible category of expenses, totally legitimate, completely normalized expenses that are absolutely decimating people's ability to build wealth. And the truly insane part, most people defending these expenses will tell you they're investments in themselves, or necessary for modern life, or my personal favorite, everyone has these costs. Here's what I'm going to show you today. How a seemingly reasonable $1,500 in monthly expenses that you've probably justified 1,000 times over is quietly, methodically destroying your financial future. Not in some dramatic crash and burn way, but in a slow, steady erosion that you won't fully understand until you're 45 and wondering why you have nothing saved. And more importantly, I'm going to show you what that money could actually be doing for you instead. So let's start with what I'm actually talking about here, because I know some of you are thinking, $1,500? That's oddly specific. And you're right. But here's the thing. When you add up the modern essentials that have crept into our lives over the past decade or so, $1,500 is actually pretty conservative for a lot of people. Let's break this down, and I want you to be honest with yourself as we go through this. First, there's the car payment. And look, I'm not here to shame anyone for having a car payment, but the average new car payment in America right now is hovering around $700 a month. $700 for something that loses 20% of its value the second you drive it off the lot. Now, I know what you're thinking, but Robert, I need a car to get to work. And yeah, you probably do. But do you need a $45,000 car? Because that's what a $700 monthly payment typically finances. Here's the uncomfortable truth. The car you drive has become a status symbol that we've all agreed to pretend is a practical necessity. We've conflated needing transportation with needing a nearly new vehicle with heated seats and a premium sound system. And the really insidious part is how normal this has become. Your parents probably drove used cars for most of their lives, but now we've got 72-month and 84-month car loans, 7-year commitments to something that's going to need major repairs by year 5. It's honestly financial insanity when you step back and look at it objectively. Then there's the streaming and subscription situation. And okay, each individual subscription seems totally reasonable, right? Netflix is $15, Spotify is $11, Amazon Prime is, $14 a month now? HBO Max, Disney Plus, Apple TV Plus, YouTube Premium, Hulu, and that's just entertainment. Then you've got your app subscriptions, the meditation app, the fitness app, the meal planning app, the cloud storage, the password manager, the VPN, and suddenly you're looking at, conservatively, $150 to $200 just in subscriptions. You know, it's wild. If you told someone in 1995 that you were spending $200 just to watch TV and listen to music and store photos, they would have thought you were completely out of your mind. But we've been boiled like frogs, basically, one subscription at a time, each one seemingly insignificant until you're hemorrhaging money on services you barely use. And speaking of barely using things, let's talk about the gym membership. Now, I'm all for fitness. I genuinely think exercise is one of the best investments you can make in yourself.
But the average gym membership runs about $50 to $100 a month, and here's the kicker. Studies show that gym members go on average of less than twice a week. Some people are literally paying $25 to $50 per actual visit. You could hire a personal trainer for a few sessions, learn some bodyweight exercises, and work out at home for free. But we don't do that because the gym membership isn't really about working out. It's about the idea of being the kind of person who works out. It's identity purchasing. Then there's eating out and coffee. And look, I know this is where I start to sound like every personal finance article you've ever hate read. But honestly, this one is probably the biggest budget killer for most people.
The average American now spends over $300 a month eating out, and that includes coffee, lunches, the occasional dinner, weekend brunch, those late-night food delivery orders when you're too tired to cook. And here's the thing. It doesn't feel like $300, right? Because it's $12 here, $8 there, $35 for dinner, $6 for coffee. It's death by 1,000 transactions. I had a friend who swore up and down that she barely ate out. She'd tell me, I cook most of my meals at home. So I had her actually track it for 1 month, just every single food purchase that wasn't groceries for home cooking. You know what it came to? $387. She was genuinely shocked because each individual purchase felt justified. She was hungry, she was with friends, she deserved a treat, whatever. But nobody thinks about the aggregate. Nobody's standing at the coffee shop thinking, this is my 23rd coffee out this month. Add all that up, $700 for the car, $200 for subscriptions, $75 for the gym, $300 for eating out, and we're already at $1,275. And I haven't even mentioned phone bills, the occasional impulse Amazon purchase, the I deserve this shopping because work was stressful, the premium gas because it's better for the car, the convenience fees and delivery fees and service fees that have become the new normal. See where I'm going with this? We're not talking about irresponsible spending. We're not talking about blowing money on obviously stupid things. We're talking about completely normalized, socially accepted, everyone does this kind of spending that adds up to financial quicksand. Now here's where it gets really depressing. And then, I promise, we'll get to the hopeful part, but stick with me through the depressing part first because it's important. Let's say you're 30 years old, and let's say you manage to redirect that $1,500 a month into investments. Just basic index fund investing, nothing fancy. Historically, the stock market returns about 10% annually. Even if we're conservative and say 8% after inflation and fees, do you know what that $1,500 a month becomes by the time you're 60? $2.2 million. $2.2 million. That's the actual cost of these normal expenses, not the $1,500 a month, not even the $540,000 you'd spend over those 30 years. The real cost is the $2.2 million you didn't have because that money was going to car payments and DoorDash and streaming services you forgot you had. And I know what some of you are thinking right now. You're thinking, but Robert, you can't expect people to just not have a car or never eat out or live like a monk for 30 years. And you're absolutely right. I'm not suggesting that. What I'm suggesting is that we've completely lost sight of the trade-offs we're making. Because here's the thing about personal finance that nobody really talks about. It's not actually about the money. It's never really about the money. It's about freedom. It's about options. It's about not being trapped in a job you hate because you need the paycheck to cover all your monthly obligations. It's about being able to take risks, to say no to things, to have breathing room in your life. Every dollar you commit to a monthly payment is a tiny piece of your future freedom that you're trading for present convenience or comfort or status. And sometimes that trade is worth it. I'm not saying it's never worth it. But most people aren't making that trade consciously. They're not sitting down and saying, I'm willing to trade $700,000 of my future net worth for the experience of driving a nice car for the next 7 years. They're just doing what everyone else is doing. So what do you actually do about this? Because awareness without action is just anxiety, and I don't want to send you spiraling into existential dread about your spending habits. First,
And this is going to sound stupidly simple, but you need to actually know where your money is going. And I don't mean roughly know, I mean actually track it. Every dollar for 1 month. Just 1 month. No judgment, no changes yet, just data collection. Because you cannot fix what you cannot see. And most people are genuinely shocked when they see the real numbers. Second, you need to separate wants from needs in a way that's actually honest. Not, I need this car to get to work, but I need transportation to get to work, and I want it to be in this specific kind of car. Not, I need to eat, but I need to eat, and I want it to be convenient from a restaurant. That distinction matters because it allows you to actually evaluate the trade-offs. Third, and this is the big one, start with one category. Just one. Don't try to overhaul your entire life in 1 month because you'll fail, and then you'll feel bad, and then you'll give up entirely. Pick the one area where you're getting the least value for your money. Maybe it's the gym you never go to, or the streaming services you barely watch, or the car that's way nicer than you actually need.
If you've got a car payment, here's a thought experiment. What if you drove that car until it was paid off and then kept driving it for a few more years, but took that $700 a month and invested it? Just that one change. In 10 years, that's $130,000. That's a down payment on a house. That's a year or two of living expenses if you lose your job. That's options. Or the eating out thing. What if you cut that in half? Not eliminate it, just half. Cook a few more meals at home. Make coffee in the morning. Pack lunch twice a week instead of buying it every day. That's $150 a month. Doesn't sound like much, right? But over 30 years at 8% returns, that's $220,000 for making coffee at home. The math is honestly kind of absurd when you actually sit down and do it. These small, seemingly insignificant decisions compound into life-changing amounts of money over time. Here's what I want you to understand. You are not broken for having these expenses. You're not stupid or irresponsible or bad with money. You're a normal human being living in a society that has been expertly engineered to separate you from your money in ways that feel completely reasonable and necessary. The streaming services, the car payments, the convenience fees, these are all designed by very smart people to feel like no big deal. To feel like everyone does this, to feel like you're actually being financially responsible by not spending even more. But just because it's normalized doesn't mean it's optimal. Just because everyone is doing it doesn't mean it's serving your best interests. And look, I'm not going to stand here and tell you that cutting out your daily coffee is going to make you a millionaire because that's reductive and honestly kind of insulting. But what I will tell you is that being intentional about where your money goes, really intentional, not just vaguely aware, is one of the most powerful things you can do for your future self. Your future is being built by the decisions you're making right now, not the big dramatic decisions, the small daily ones. The should I get delivery or cook at home ones. The do I really need the premium version ones. The is this car worth 7 years of payments ones. And the beautiful thing, the truly beautiful thing about this is that you don't have to be perfect. You just have to be better. 5% better, 10% better. Every small improvement, every slightly more intentional choice compounds over time, just like those investments we talked about. So maybe today, just for today, you take an honest look at one recurring expense, just one, and you ask yourself, is the value I'm getting from this worth the future I'm trading for it? And then whatever you decide, at least you're deciding consciously. At least you're awake. That's all any of us can really do. Wake up to what we're actually doing with our money, and then decide if that's really what we want to be doing. And if it's not, well, that's okay too, because now you know. And knowing is where change begins.